Hi, I'm Bald Dobo Rat, or Jitterbug Jive, depending on what I'm doing. Here's the obligatory disclaimer that no, I do not hate Hazbin Hotel or Helluva Boss. They're great shows to just shut down your brain and have fun with. But because I enjoy the shows so much, I also have a lot of hopes and expectations for them that aren't really being met. So there are things that don't sit right with me and things I think could really be improved. Also, I'm really not going to bother censoring. This topic would be impossible to talk about if I started saying things like SA, unalive, and various forms of talking about porking that go under the nose of the censors. I'm not making money off my videos on this account, and I'd rather just say things naturally. So with that, let's get into it. It's no secret that Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss are the horniest shows of the day, but are they really? The way sex is approached in both series can honestly come off as ironically rather Puritan and ignorant. Let me explain. You see, sex is not really explored in mature, healthy, or educational ways in either series. Instead, sex is almost exclusively used for shock value, to make people clutch their pearls in shock and disgust, or giggle like 12-year-old girls who just secretly watched an episode together in their first true act of rebellion. If it isn't being used for pure shock value, it's being used to fetishize gay men. And when I say it's ignorant, I mean that it does not remotely come off as being written by someone who has a deep understanding of the kink community. Kinks that are mentioned in the series are honestly so vanilla you can see the beans. And human beings, if there's one thing they have in endless abundance, it's finding ways to be kinky.
And amazingly, it's not a weird sex thing. 99% of all new human behaviors are weird sex things, but not in this. Oh, no, it is a weird sex thing. Yeah.
So why does it feel like these shows are not only showing kink in a negative light, but they barely explore the vast depravity that is mankind's lusts? How do shows like this approach sex and kink more maturely than Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss? Let's take a look. Now, do I think there's malicious intent here? Not really. I think it's just a case of someone who's looking in from the outside of the kink community, who does not understand the way that they write sex has an ultimately negative impact, or that they need to have some level of awareness of harmful stereotypes before running full steam ahead with things that excited them when they were a teenager. It all feels like the shows were written by someone who was knees deep in the Yaoi fandom, but that's about as far as they explored kink or fetish. And yes, Yaoi is a fetish genre that I disconnect from true LGBT plus content because it's aimed at women who find the idea of two men boinking hot, rather than being made for gay men to see themselves in or be drawn to. I think with proper research with sensitivity readers and experienced writers, these issues can be recovered from. So just know, this is not me suggesting either shows are lost causes or that Vivzy is purposely presenting sex as repulsive to make it look bad. I believe she feels she is being sex and LGBT plus positive in the same way as someone gifting a Hispanic neighbor a sombrero as a token of goodwill without knowing anything about that particular neighbor other than that they're Hispanic. This is a little bitch known as implicit bias, which would be the assumptions we make about things automatically when we see or think about them. Society and our personal experiences form our implicit biases, and no matter who you are, you have them. When you favor something or not, or have an idea of what someone is like when you first see or hear about someone with basically little to no information, this is implicit bias. Some examples of implicit bias people may have is, they're Asian, so they must be smart. They're homeless, so they must be a drug addict. They're autistic, so they can't empathize. All are not actual facts you know about people in these demographics, but culture and society has taught you to make these assumptions. And the clear implicit bias shown in both of these shows is that sex, especially kink, is dirty. It's all a bunch of filth to indulge in because it's taboo. And people who are kinky are a bunch of freaks, so clearly this is made for the freaks, right? By someone who thinks a whip, leather masks, and the word daddy is top-tier freaky, unfortunately.
Daddy?
So many kink jokes are meant for shock, and only really have basic knowledge of kink. You have a joke about feet pics in the pilot, for example.
Everyone wants some of me, and I got the creepy fan letters to prove it.
Which is supposed to be creepy and weird, but feet fetishes are insanely common because where our brains register feet is really close to where our brains register poontang. Stolas is implied to be so kinky that he has to be censored, yet we know of his kinks involving knife play at worst, and no, I don't count the uncensored version of his sex rant as canon to his kinks.
Before taking out your teeth and filling it with more teeth until you're screaming pee-pee-poo-poo like a fucking babe!
There could have been more jokes about Stolas having a cloaca and all that crazy shit one can do with a cloaca, because it's got an all-in-one deal. For the people who aren't furries or don't know what bird anatomy is like, a cloaca serves as an all-in-one genitals and butthole. All the bird business comes from the cloaca. It already is canon that Stolas has a cloaca, but they don't do much with it.
Whatever this little guy is. But I'm sure there's someplace in your cloaca we can stick it.
And the best part is, cloaca isn't a dirty word, yet it has the potential to be a source of creative filth. There's no creativity with the kinks here. It's all stuff that pretty much any human could do, and how lame is that? There's also a real big obsession with calling people daddy, like it's just the dirtiest thing you can say to someone, and so many characters do it that it starts to get really uncomfortable.
Gays are so obsessed with daddies, but the minute someone's actual father buys you a leather mask, all the daddy fantasies really fly out the window.
There's a very weird insistence on sexy incest implications in the Helluverse that I'll get into later. For now, I want to explore one episode of Helluva Boss in particular to show what I mean about this base knowledge of kink for shock. That being, when Blitzo is looking for kinky toys to entice and pleasure Stolas with in the episode The Full Moon.
Welcome, little one. What can I interest you in today?
So, first we have sexy candles, which at first I'm thinking, oh, wax play. Okay, that's kind of kinky, but no, it's all about the smells, apparently. The sexy aroma.
Like this extra large candle that smells like horny.
Does Vivzy not know that candles are used for wax play? Next is the bondage shop. Let's just look at the screen caps. I see a leather daddy hat and a muzzle here, which is similar to a gag. Basic. Then there's leather harnesses, which people wear in public at conventions all the time. Next, sub and pup masks, paddles and flogs. Some very basic dildos. This is enough to make the cherubs be like, oh, sick depravity! And then when it zooms out to a view of the store when the spider dude asks, what kind of torturing are we looking to do? We get a view of some harnesses. Oh, and there's some horse crops in the background there. Man, I had a crop when I was 16. That shit's like the most baby bondage thing you can get. Might as well get a feather. Which there are none of here, by the way. Now we have various spanking tools, and the only one that comes off as a hellish level sex toy is the one with spikes. Finally, we get to a shot of a really basic ass sex machine that the more you look at it really doesn't impress. There's spikes on it in places that wouldn't matter for anything but aesthetic, a dildo for the mouth, a dildo for below, and some kind of clit tickler, I'm assuming, and stirrups for the legs. Yeah, it's just literally a normal sex machine. There's also some collars and suspension play, and the only demonic thing about it is that it has clamps for a tail to fit in. And the reaction is one of the cherubs fainting. All of this we're supposed to see is like super sick and shocking and extreme, but let me ask some questions here. Where's the medical play tools like my good friend the Wartenberg wheel? Where's the Lolita dresses for the freakos? Where are the weird costumes?
Fuck yeah. Oh, yeah, like...
Where are the specially designed G and P spot ticklers? Where's the electricity play? The chastity devices? The pumps? I'm not even talking about the potential stuff you can invent for demons. This is all stuff you can find in an average kink store. Actual, normal human sex shops have more crazy shit than the sex shop in hell. Okay, so, Osmodius has got to have the really nasty stuff in his factory, right? Let's look. Shoes, handcuffs, bad dragon dildos, cliche lingerie, more paddles, condoms, a body pillow. Wow, hell sure is utilizing the whole helliness of things. These totally aren't just the most basic, expected things you can find in any sex shop. Pan over 2, lube, double-ended dildo, fleshlight, bullet vibe, 2-hole dildo, more boring basic lingerie, shibari ropes. Oh, hey, that chubby mannequin has a more diverse body type than the entire cast. Man, I wish Millie had that kind of pudge. She'd be really cute. And it's not even like fat pudge. This is just a normal-ass looking female body with some extra hip. Why do the mannequins get more diversity in body shape than the actual characters? Anyways, more panning, more bad dragon dildos, more rather normal outfits, more paddles, anal beads, blindfolds, lube, bondage mask, gags, more of the same stuff, panties. I don't know what those armbands are for, but it doesn't look kinky. Oh, the wing accessories are cute, but I wouldn't call that kinky. Finally, the biggest, baddest, worst thing they can come up with is a hypergiant dildo that has tentacle action. You went through all of that to get to this, and I'm honestly not surprised that's the best you can do. Also, Blitz doesn't recognize the fucking butt plug. Are you shitting me right now? They could have at least tried to make it look like something weird, like a pair of anguish, which is a literal torture device. So, yeah, it's pretty consistent through both Helluva Boss and Hazbin Hotel that the kinkiest kink they show is vanilla bondage. And you can't use the excuse of, oh, they have limits for what they can show on YouTube and Amazon. Bullshit. There's nothing explicit about medical tools, for example. I just have an issue with this literal demonizing of the kind of bondage most newbies to BDSM get into. And almost any time bondage comes up, comed up, oh my, sorry. And almost any time bondage comes up, it's meant for the audience to be shocked, or the characters reacting to it, to be put off by it. The good, healthy side of bondage is never explored. At the base of bondage must be trust and communication. It's not explored how liberating bondage can be and how much it gives agency back to people. Back on the topic of censorship, there are plenty of non-explicit fetishes that exist out there that could be explored. Humans are very strange and will find almost anything attractive. I am constantly discovering new fetishes that people have, from arm floaties to poofy muffin-shaped dresses, to asses on fire, to mud pits. There's always something you never expect to be a fetish out there to discover. And if they're in hell and can't die, there's gotta be way more things they get into and get away with.
Now she's gonna win all these sex maniacs. We gotta pick things up, guys.
I think the biggest issue here is how BDSM is very literally demonized, yet it's not given anything specifically demon about it, and it's super vanilla for a baby kinkster.
Angel! What the actual fuck?
And it's clear how everyone reacts to BDSM in the show, that it's meant to be dirty and extreme. The characters who are really into it have serious damage in their sex lives, but most everyone else reacts to it like they need to bleach their eyes.
We aren't playing any of vile demon kinks!
No one comes to BDSM's defense. BDSM is never utilized in a positively depicted way, and it's super common in hell, which implies it's super bad if all the demons are really into it. There are so many useful ways BDSM can be utilized for a narrative, such as building trust or having a fun way to fight using kink items. Imagine if Angel Dust knew how to restrain someone really well because of his job. Something a lot of people don't understand is the level of trust that has to be exchanged for a healthy BDSM relationship. A lot of people assume that the Dom is the one in control, but the reality is it's the sub who has the power to call the shots anytime and show their Dom what their limits are, and the Dom needs to trust the sub with their darker side, and that the sub will communicate if anything goes too far. That's what safe words are for, though a Dom can use a safe word too if a sub makes things too uncomfortable. I learned from a Dom friend of mine that it's not only good to have a safe word, but a word for slow down or less intensity, just to show that you're fine, no boundary was crossed, but you just need a moment, or it's a little too much. This way, you're not telling yourself it's too excessive to use the safe word if you're mildly uncomfortable, and you're still respecting your own limits. Anyways, my point here is, if Hazbin Hotel is supposed to be about trust and bonding, why not utilize that aspect of BDSM? Like, imagine if they just, for the most basic ideas, decided to start using safe words for situations they're uncomfortable with. How much would that help the characters learn to respect one another more and trust in each other? I think it would help a lot, honestly. I believe the main reason the writing is like this is because Vivzie comes from a place of understanding sex as taboo, and therefore it becomes exciting or funny to her.
Oh, don't worry, Looney. It's okay. It's just one little prick. You won't feel it.
Ew, don't say that. It sounds vulgar.
Excuse me?
Pervert.
She likes things that are edgy, and instead of softening the edges for something more mature, she just puts that edge on full display to shock the world with a cartoon that says fuck excessively. She was attracted to man-on-man yaoi and grazed the BDSM community because they were dirty things a good pure person shouldn't get into, as it goes for a lot of teens growing up. To a teen, the more taboo it is, the more enticing it becomes. But it seems like Vivzie herself kept a bit of a safe distance from the BDSM community, ogling at them from afar, but never truly getting involved in it herself. All she knows is leather, daddies, paddles, and dongs. It's like being a fan of basketball because you like to shoot hoops in the driveway and watched a couple of games on TV, but you know nothing else about it beyond that and never actually went to a game. It's just entertainment. It does not aim to educate anyone about kink. It does not aim to make kink meaningful. It does not aim to normalize kink. It does not aim to understand kink. It is just there to go, whoa, look at all those freakos in their freaky depraved kink shit. Isn't that hilarious? Weird sex. Another issue with sex in the series is that it's never sensual and intimate. It's always gratuitous. And the romance in both series are either hypersexual or lacking so much chemistry that the characters might as well be ace. Millie and Moxie look cute on the surface, for example, but almost every time they kiss, it devolves into sloppy makeouts, and sometimes it goes further. There has never been a tender, loving sex scene or implications of tender, loving sex. It's all raw and nasty. A side issue I have with Moxie is how he's often emasculated for gags and imply he's weak or weird. Feminizing Moxie is often with the intent to humiliate him, from putting him in dresses to joking about him being a bottom.
Does Millie ever peg you?
Sometimes. Wait! Ew! Fuck! Why that?
I knew it.
Not a fan of them implying pegging was gross or shameful, by the way. Deadpool, meanwhile, knows where it's at. He ain't afraid to go to Pleasure Town with a little back-end action with his lovely lady. After a while, it starts to get uncomfortable when practically everyone is emasculating Moxie in a negative way. I'd love to see his more feminine traits become strengths over time, but no, Moxie is the comic relief of the cast, whose character growth revolves around him manning up, so not only does he get his masculinity shit on constantly, he got hit with that he's so much of a girly loser that it's funny if he gets sexually assaulted type of humor. More on that later. Ooh, just you wait. I want to talk about the cast of both shows and how they approach sex. Starting with Hazbin, 4 out of 7 different characters of the main cast appear to be sex repulsed to some degree, those being Husk, Charlie, Vaggie, and Alistair.
Ugh, I can't fucking believe I let you drag us here, Angel. This is disgusting.
All of them constantly react negatively to sex as a topic, and react negatively to flirtation, which is understandable and perfectly fine for a character to do, but when over half of your cast is reacting the same way to sex, I think that's an issue.
It's, very honest. Oh. Ew.
Alistair, we know, is ace, but, he feels like the type of ace that's basically, he's a psychopath, so naturally he can't feel love or attraction, which is problematic in its own right, considering how often asexuals are stereotyped as psychopaths, and how often people with the antisocial personality disorders are stereotyped as being incapable of love.
Never going to happen.
I get absolutely zero sexy vibes from Vaggie and Charlie. They have zero sexual chemistry, they never flirt, they never say anything sexual, they're just a couple of pure lesbians who smooch sometimes. The first impression I got from Vaggie in the pilot was that she was a big man-hater who didn't like advances being made on her.
Smile, my dear! You know you're never fully dressed without one.
A Husk also never flirts or says anything sexual and gets really put off by sexual advances. He gets uncomfortable if things get a little too weird.
You know, I don't hate this.
I'm ready to punish some bad boys.
Never mind, I'm out.
For the characters who aren't sex repulsed, 2 of them are sex pests. Angel is more obvious as one, since he's a porn actor. He's always flirting to dull the pain in his life, and his flirtation is supposed to be obnoxious and invasive, and also fake on top of everything else. Not a positive trait showing confidence or charisma. Nifty is a little more covert about it, and because of her childish nature, people miss the sexual drive she has. She likes her bad boys and will creep on them, taking trophies from them. It's a trait that's seen as weird and creepy. It's not meant to be a positive trait of hers.
Oh, what the fuck? For my collection.
Serpentius, meanwhile, is so comical in nature that it seems it's apparently acceptable for a rape joke to be made about him. He's a loser, so it's silly. He did it to himself. It's karma. Shut up. Comic relief does not mean you can just get away with doing any nasty thing to them. It seems really iffy that in both shows the comic relief males are emasculated and sexually assaulted as jokes. The hypocrisy of the rape joke after the Angel Dust episode isn't so much what is bothering me like it does other people. What's bothering me is who it's implying is acceptable to sexually assault. If Serpentius was not a comic relief character, the joke very likely would not have been made about him. Seriously, sit there and try to imagine if a rape joke was made about any of the other cast members, and how much that would absolutely not work at all. These jokes are essentially saying, if you're a loser, you should be humiliated by any means, and it's funny if you get sexually assaulted. No one will care if you do. Helluva Boss, meanwhile, doesn't have any sex-repulsed main characters, but instead has more issues with hypersexuality. The main character, Blitzo, is another sex pest who likes to invade Millie and Moxie's love life and depends on sex to get what he wants. Millie and Moxie are almost always down each other's throats. Luna manages to avoid being sexual or sex repulsed, which is interesting for her, I'd say. But while the main cast isn't sex repulsed, there's still a lot of sex repulsion displayed, such as the Cherubs earlier and Stryker being freaked out by sexual comments towards whatever he's doing. Stryker and Octavia are supposed to be ace, and both repulsed by sex, although Octavia might just be because it was her dad.
Now, I'm calling the only man who can me.
What?
But if Stryker is so sex repulsed, why the hell did they have to make him look so stupid with a giant dong statue? How does that align with him? How can you not want sex things directed at you while simultaneously having a statue of yourself with a huge schlong? Bad joke, no one liked it, ruined the character more. There's something I've observed about these series as well, that is that most of the characters who are extremely sexual are shown as terrible people, or that they're in terrible circumstances. And if not that, they're fetishized as a gay couple. Angel sexually harasses people, and at first barely makes any effort to be redeemed with his apparent efforts all being off-screen later, and he's only as sexual as he is because he's coping with being trapped in the porn industry, where he's being physically abused. Valentino is obviously a bad guy, I don't even need to explain that. Blitz burns everyone in his path, is a sex pest to his friends, and is trapped in a sexual contract sort of relationship where he doesn't feel valued. Chaz is a massive sex pest who will fuck anyone and anything, and will do shady things for money, and he forcibly tries to marry Moxie. And can we just talk about how it feels like how they assign characters as pansexual is asking, will they fuck everyone rather than, can they be attracted to anyone? Because I may be pansexual, but I am extremely picky about who I get intimate with. Yeah, I'm attracted to all kinds of bodies and gender identities because I'm attracted to personalities more than looks. A person looks attractive to me the moment my brain decides they have a desirable personality. Nothing else matters. Pansexuals and bisexuals are constantly being shown sleeping around with everyone, and it's like, no. Just because someone is straight doesn't mean they're constantly sleeping around with different people of the opposite sex. It's the same for bi and pansexuals. Back to the hypersexual characters, Fizz and Ozzy are a textbook yaoi couple with most focus on their sex lives, complete with them constantly being backed by sexy saxophone music. Rasika is an alcoholic who can't move on, to a point of stalking her ex to contact all of his exes and invite them into an annual hate party about him. Oh, and she is not above sexual assault. Meanwhile, the sex-repulsed characters, Husk, Charlie, Vaggie, are all considered the more moral characters of the cast, which isn't helped by Charlie's clear assumptions about sex before marriage.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to not have sexual intercourse before marriage! Yes!
It gives the implication that sex is a moral failing unless it's romantic, or at least a lot of characters assume it is. It'd be nice to get some clarity in Season 2 how Heaven's occupants approach sex. Do they still follow the rules of pure marriage, or are they getting to be party animals with no limits as a reward now that they're in heaven? Would be kind of a waste if they're all hot and can't have orgies.
And everyone is hot.
We'll see, hopefully. There are a few unhealthy sexual relationships in both shows that are romanticized in one way or another. The relationship between Blitz and Stolas is controversial because of its questionable lack of enthusiastic consent and its quid pro quo favor for favor nature. This would be fine if the show explored it better, but it hasn't really handled it well so far. The characters have not had proper healthy discussions about it, which causes them to seem like they are moving too fast, and covers up some of the problems the relationship actually has by not addressing them. This causes their relationship to come off as less of a problem than it actually is. They still have an unhealthy start and grow into something healthy, but it needs to be handled properly, or else it will demonstrate unrealistic and dangerous expectations for more complex relationships. It's unrealistic to think that a healthy relationship can sprout from ignoring their discomfort in their argument about being together, and then just deciding to be together. In Hazbin, meanwhile, you have Angel and Valentino, which is handled in an expected way. That is, it's surface level and checks all the abuse boxes, without diving deeper into the complexities of abuse. To reduce the complicated pattern of abuse and love bombing through a bunch of phone messages is lazy and uninspired. It does not give the true impact a relationship like this should have. Angel's musical number is another problem because while I know the intent of it was to show his exploitation through his performances, I also know the person who animated it had a rape fetish and probably got off to it. One can argue that putting it through the lens of someone fetishizing it makes the exploitative nature of it more effective, but you also have to keep in mind if this person is making it from a fetish point of view, it was made to be sexy to people who are into that fetish. That's just the simple fact of the matter, and that is disrespectful to what they claim it was meant for. Also, the sex work industry has only been shown in negative light, but that's a smaller nitpick, as I'd like to see positive sex work as well, because it exists, believe it or not. I really hope Angel gains agency, but still chooses sex work on his own terms. We need more stories of people taking charge of their own bodies through positive sex work. There are other issues with how sexualities are handled. The gay men and pansexual characters, Stolas, Blitz, Chaz, Angel, Ozzy, Fizz, Veronica, they all are hypersexual to agree where... To agree? No, to a degree. They're hypersexual to agree. They are all hypersexual to a degree where sex is a huge part of their character and not just a thing they do. This is, of course, gross stereotyping of gay and pansexual people. A person's sexuality has nothing to do with how much sex they'll have. Meanwhile, the one significant lesbian relationship is so void of sex that it took quite a few people until Vaggie and Charlie kissed to even realize they were a couple. This is also a stereotype for lesbians, where they're seen as ideally pure and wholesome. This is also a common issue for girls who like yaoi. They are often put off by lesbian yuri, so if they ever write it, it ends up being nothing but fluff and zero sex, because lesbians aren't hot to them. The only relationship that is healthy, not sex-focused, but still has a sexual chemistry, is the only straight relationship of note, Moxie and Millie. There is one thing that is extremely clear about how Vivzy writes her characters. She is following yaoi culture, which is predominantly women and trans men who get really excited by the idea of gay men. I used to be a part of this culture when I was too young to be getting into it, and I remember all the toxic relationships that were romanticized in yaoi stories, and the gross generalizations of what gay relationships are like. There's stereotyping such as the concept of a Seme and an Uke, which puts gay men strictly into two categories: cute, feminine men who are submissive and bottom, and masculine, aggressive men who top. And when I say masculine, I don't mean like muscles and beards. The more masculine men are still quite feminine, with no body hair and fair features that just happen to be more masculine than Uke by comparison, by being like taller and having stupidly huge hands, for example. There is a more uncommon subcategory of yaoi fans that like bara, which is the big hairy men, though gay men tend to be more drawn to bara than women are. The Seme and Uke often play stereotypical heteronormative roles, basically replacing traditional women with men instead of actually being about realistic men. They act like the typical straight couple cut with more shame and often toxicity. It's common for there to be a huge power dynamic between the men, be it age, position, or capability. The relationship between Blitz and Stolas being a pretty textbook example of the common taboo of a royal and a commoner affair and an arranged marriage. Another commonality in a yaoi? I have a typo here, it says yaoi. Another commonality in yaoi is male prostitutes who need to be rescued from abusive pimps. Also, non-consent and dubious consent is very prominent in yaoi fiction, along with a lot of drama revolving around sex. The number of times I've read a yaoi where a guy forces himself onto another guy until the other guy likes it, which is seen as a good thing, is honestly grotesque. Yaoi is comparable to men who like women-on-women action, but the difference is usually men want to be involved in the action, while yaoi girls just want to watch, making yaoi a very voyeuristic fetish. You don't understand what a yaoi fangirl is like? until you've heard a crowd of them screeching like horny banshees upon seeing two men kiss or touch butts.
Haha, you only made my next attack more effective. L, use Yaoi attack!
Oh, you got me. I would like to personally thank you for the cake.
And trust me, this is a fetish, not a sexual preference. From my own experience, I know that a lot of yaoi fangirls come from a place of being terrified or repulsed by straight cis men and toxic masculinity. Also, many come from a lifestyle that demands purity for them, which causes a lot of repression and addiction to the taboo things that feel harmless enough. Yaoi boys, however, are a safe way to enjoy men sexually without objectifying the women, and instead, the men become the objects for the female gaze. They're feminine, sensitive, and emotional, dubiously forceful to only other men, and are romanticized versions of men that are actually fairly rare dynamics in real life. Unlike men who don't fear women and would want lesbians to turn their attention to the man, yaoi fangirls are more often than not content remaining an observer. I remember not understanding gay relationships very well at all, and constantly thinking, what if these men kissed and got it on? That would be super hot. I remember stalking gay couples at conventions so I could giggle at them. Yaoi fangirl culture also has a huge thing with spanking paddles, with yaoi paddles being popular enough to often sell well at conventions. Bondage is often a huge part of yaoi as well, and is how a lot of fangirls get introduced to BDSM. Think things like Boku no sexual harassment.
It's not different at all! Is it, Steve?
Part of the core of this fetish is that it's taboo and naughty, the main idea being that men romancing one another is a delicious forbidden fruit. I grew up Christian, so it made gay men all the more enticing to me because it was sinful and exotic. But as I grew up and learned more about the true LGBT community and myself and how problematic the yaoi fandom was, I left the yaoi cliches and just let my gay characters be normal human beings who happen to be gay. Vivzi very much comes off as what is known as a fujoshi, which translates to rotten girl. A fujoshi is most commonly a straight or ace woman who likes yaoi. They are associated with being horny, awkward girls with no romantic interest in real men. Rotten is an implication of being unclean and into unclean things, which is the kind of vibes these shows give off. That it's someone purposely trying to be unclean for the sake of being dirty. It's someone acting out against a prude, homophobic society that is obsessed with censorship, not someone who has dived into real gay culture and explored healthy sex and wants to educate people by representing gay culture accurately. She's marketing to the yaoi fangirls and the gays, but she's not saying anything meaningful about them. Sideran, I swear to God, if you wanted to make Miss Mayberry be into women but not be pan or bi, you should have just made her demisexual instead of lesbian, which would have made more sense because if she was demisexual, her being in love with her husband still would make sense, especially because demisexual people form strong romantic bonds due to being only attracted to people they get to know well, and why the hell would she have murdered him over his cheating if she wasn't just a little bit on the straight side? Okay, rant over. Polyamory is also subtly shamed in Helluverse, with Blitz's desire to get in with Moxie and Millie's relationship. This is shown as annoying and creepy. He's a pest. I'm not saying they should just let him get with the two of them, but it is one of the only things representing poly relationships right now. Otherwise, there is Aussies in the Lust Club where Blitz was denied an entry where claiming to be with the M&Ms just because Lust Club was apparently couples only? Even though when looking inside, there's a table with a poly group, so what was that about? It would have made more sense if there was a specific couples-only event happening that night, but in general, it doesn't work for a club geared towards lust. Why would you kick out a couple being romantic when you're only allowing couples? Why all this weird emphasis on monogamy? Actually, this whole thing with couples only being the reason Blitz can't get in doesn't make sense at all. Aussies has to be booked way in advance, so there's no need to make the couples rule. Just say Blitz doesn't have a reservation, but he knows he can get VIP treatment with Stolas Stollis as a date. Also, Millie and Moxie are constantly seen lusting after each other, and the fact that this is the one place they don't doesn't make sense unless they specifically wanted to screw with the people in the club. Also,
Welcome to Ozzy's, Lust Ring's #1 place for all kinds of sick, twisted fantasies. Put on display for all you sleaze and sleazettes.
he said this is for sleazes and sleazettes, but the worst thing shown is a blowjob under the table and a poly group hanging out. Can I also point out how the antagonist of this episode is lust itself? Moxie and Millie being mocked for not lusting. Stollis and Blitzo being mocked for their taboo relationship, and Blitzo feeling objectified by it. Lust is the thing that is pushing against the characters. Also, I realize I keep switching between saying Blitz and Blitzo. It's because I spell it out Blitzo, but I don't have the little X over the O, so I keep saying Blitzo. Sorry, Blitz! There is also a sexism issue in the shows. Again, not out of maliciousness or intent. I think there's just some internalized misogyny Vivzie hasn't properly dealt with yet. There's a very distinct lack of mothers, from them being dead to missing to evil. The female characters have much less depth to them than the male characters, to a point where Millie has many essays complaining about how oh, she's a cat now, how little there is to her. Even the show that was supposed to be about the girls, according to Vivzie, ended up being more about Angel Dust and Serpentius. When women are insulted, they get most of the same insults: whore, slut, bitch, cheater. Most of the things being shaming women for sleeping around or an unwanted personality trait.
Listen to your hoe, Mox.
These are supposed to be top-tier insults, the worst thing someone can call them. There are other insults out there if you just got more creative than base swears. Meanwhile, more misogyny occurs with how men doing feminine things is shown as weaker or lame, or if not that, they're super sexualized. If they're supposed to be sexy, they get taken more seriously, but if they're not meant to be sexy by the traditional standards, they get mocked instead of sexualized. Also notice how the two characters being mocked are both paired with women who are so much cooler and badass than the guys who pine for them. Millie is practically defined by being the cool wife with a sissy husband, and Serpentius didn't get a chance of attracting Cherry Bomb until Angel piqued her interest about his potential 2 dicks, and when he forcibly kissed her, which was kinda hot. Which is implying this value is based on his sexual qualities. Great. Fairly recently, something did come up to light that might explain all of these writing issues. Vivzie believes that she might be asexual, which could explain a whole lot about her lack of knowledge or interest in kink beyond what a high schooler on the early 2000s internet would sneakily get into for the fun of it. I'm not saying asexuals can't write good sex-positive things, but that they need to make more effort to understand sex and sexuality if they're going to seriously write about it. I hope with this realization she can be responsible enough to get some sex-positive writers on her team, and admit she may have been out of her depth. I think some good sex positivity would really help the shows move up a level in quality. So, this essay is extremely long, so I decided to split it into 2 parts so I could at least get part 1 out before Season 2 of Hazbin launches. Part 2 is about comparing Vivzie's shows to Rick and Morty and how each handles sex. I'm going to be working on it as hard as I can to get it out ASAP, but I can't promise it will be out before Halloween. Drink water, self-care, and survive.